tax returns were always considered sacred. Lawyers, in their own way, if you can believe this, were considered sacred. Today, lawyers go before grand juries all over this place if they happen to be lawyers representing Republicans, and they treat lawyers like they're criminals. It used to be if you had a lawyer, the lawyer was somebody that was very much considered from the standpoint of what we're talking about, above reproach. Now they get thrown in with everybody else, and it's a very unusual situation that's taking place. And again, legal scholars can't believe what they're witnessing. And yet, after going over 11 million pages of documents, I built a great company. They've got nothing. They've got nothing. Thank you. 11 million pages. And my tax returns on top of it, and they're a big return. It probably makes me the most innocent man in the history of our country. Friends of mine say. Very successful friend of mine said, you know what, President, on page 3, they got me. 11 million pages we gave over to various groups, including Congress. The new weapon being used by out-of-control, unhinged Democrats to cheat on elections is criminally investigating a candidate, bad publicity and all. Get bad publicity. Craziest thing, I got bad publicity and my poll numbers have gone through the roof. Would you explain this? Explain that to me, Dan. Mr. Congressman, you got to explain it to me because nobody else has ever heard of it. But you know what? It gets so much publicity that the case actually gets adjudicated in the press. And people see it's bullshit and they go and they say, it's unfair. But it takes place by the Department of Injustice and their local henchmen at the AG and VA's offices throughout the country. They use the local offices, like in New York City, like in Atlanta, like in Chicago and Los Angeles. They make lives miserable, destroy their families and friends, even though they know these people are innocent. In many cases, they're patriots. Not guilty of anything, and yet they have to go through hell. And if you're running for office, even Dan, but I don't think you're going to go after. We have some great congressmen, probably the one go after because they're too clean. They're the cleanest people I've ever met. They come from Texas. They have to go. But let's say they're not that well known. They're doing a good job, and an investigation is started into one of these many great people. They're going to lose their race. They're losing their race. And they do it all the time. They're using investigations now instead of, because it's harder for them to stuff a ballot box to stuff money. You know, Marjorie is here, Truth to Vote, and they found at least 5 million instances on tape, and the courts didn't want to even look at it. The District Attorney of New York, under the auspices and direction of the Department of Injustice in Washington, D.C., was investigating me for something that is not a crime, not a misdemeanor, not an affair. I never liked horseface. I never liked it. It's just not. It's terrible. That wouldn't be the one. There is no one. We have a great First Lady.
Yeah.
Who people really do love. She's done an incredible job. Not an era, not anything. They have nothing. And yet it went on and on and on and continues to. He stacked his office with DC operatives. A man named Matthew Colangelo, one of the top people in the Department of Justice, was moved into the Manhattan DA's office to make sure that Trump got taken care of. They couldn't get it done in Washington, so they said, let's use local offices. So they have Colangelo, the top, just about the top, one of the top people under the Attorney General Garland. They sent him into New York to be in the Manhattan office, can you imagine that, in order to prosecute and do everything he could to get rid of Trump. Because, you know, our poll numbers are through the roof. I guess you've seen that. They don't like it. They don't like it. We won in 2016. We won by much more in 2020 when it was rigged. You know, in 2020, I got the most votes of any sitting president in history. We won the most counties in the United States in the history of our country. Many, many, many times more than Biden won. And yet, they said we lost. So what we have to do is swamp them this time. The one thing that really does prevail, I heard all of you different speakers talking about what to do. We used to like to hold out on Tuesday till Tuesday, and everybody goes in and votes, and then in some cases you go in and vote and the machines are all broken. That's what they do to you. That's what they did to some very special people. You know that. In a state, certain state, everybody was so proud. Republicans liked to vote on Tuesday. They went in and the machines, a lot of the machines were broken. So they had to stand online for 10 hours and more, and actually many of them never got to vote. That's what they do. They always seem to find an answer. It's what they're good at. They're good at stealing, lying.
Yes.
They're good at keeping borders open. They're good at no voter ID.
Yes.
Why don't they want voter ID? Think of
Fraud.
it. You know, 88% of the Democrats want voter ID, but not the leadership. There's only one reason you don't want voter ID, because you want to cheat on elections.
Amen. Exactly.
And the Republicans cannot take it any longer. They have to get tougher, but they cannot take it. These Washington Republicans like Mitch McConnell is the absolute worst.
Yeah. Wicked Mitch of the West.
They've got to get tougher. They got to get like Marjorie Taylor Greene. You have to do that.
Amen.
They like to run for the Senate. We'll fight like hell. Where's Matt Gaetz? I heard his speech. Oh, Matt, look at that. Boy, he laid it out there, didn't he? I said, you know, I was watching, and I said, you know, maybe he's gone a little too far. Then I realized, no, he hasn't. That's really, he's given some very good facts. And people like it. That's why he wins his district by a tremendous amount. Well, they weaponized him, too. They weaponized him. They made up phony charges, and he went through 2 years of hell. And he turned out to be a brave guy. It is a good test, you have to say that, man. It's a hell of a test. We learn about people. It's almost like going to school, taking the test. He got an A+ on that test. They took the word of a proven liar, a convicted felon, and a disbarred lawyer, all the same person, believe it or not. You wouldn't think that could go to one person. It would be 3, 4, 5. Over some of the most respected and prestigious people in the country, in New York City, some of the most respected lawyers testifying against. They looked at all of these pages of documents. They went back to old cases that were summarily rejected by many prosecutors, highly respected prosecutors, Democrat prosecutors all. Before including, and I will tell you, the existing prosecutor who said this case doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. All of a sudden pressure got put on him by Washington, D.C. And the case didn't make sense. He said, let's go get Trump. They even had numerous prosecutors who resigned because I was being treated unfairly. That made me feel so good when I heard that. Thinking, people actually in a Democrat area, Democrat office, they resigned. You know that? They resigned, a lot of them resigned the office because they said, you can't treat a man like this. He didn't do anything wrong. But the two lead prosecutors, absolute human scum. One, a Hillary Clinton lawyer from a Hillary Clinton law firm. You believe that? How about a guy who represents Hillary Clinton? He's in a law firm that represents Democrats. It's headed up by Chuck Schumer's brother, this law firm, Robert Schumer. Think of this, or think of this. And he calls up the prosecutor. Think of this, he calls up the district attorney of Manhattan. He said, I'd like to come and work for free. I'm going to leave. I represent Hillary Clinton. We represent the DNC, the Democrat Party. I don't even know if you know this. And he said, I want to work for free. He's a bad guy, known as a bad guy. I want to work for free to get Trump. And they bring him into the office. He becomes the head prosecutor. Then you have another one similar.
Psycho.
And then he goes out
Total psycho.
and he quits because the head of the office who I respected, but then he went bad because he succumbed to pressure. But the head of the office said, no, we can't get him on anything. He didn't do anything wrong. Changed his mind a little bit on a couple of different things. He was under a great deal of pressure. Now I understand that he's made up his mind that he agrees with his original film. But how about this? A guy leaves private practice representing Hillary Clinton, goes for no salary, no anything. He goes into the district attorney's office to prosecute Donald Trump. He doesn't get what he wants, so he leaves the office in a huff, and he writes a book, and the book is published during the case ongoing. And I will say this, he has been absolutely killed by the media, even the fake news media back there, a lot of them I see. And they say that in itself is enough reason that should have stopped a long time ago. So he goes in and he writes a book, and he makes money off a book telling what went on with the grand jury. What do you think of that, Mr. Lieutenant Governor? You think that's fair? Sounds like a fair system. It's a rigged system. Like we had a rigged election, we have a rigged system. And you almost have to say, what does our country come to? Review after review, even by the biggest, greatest legal scholars, some of whom don't like Trump. Like Alan Dershowitz said, I don't want to vote for Trump. I never voted for Trump. I don't believe him. Actually, I think he does, but he does have to give himself a little credibility with his friends and Democrats. I think he votes for me personally, but he even said, in 60 years of practicing law, it's the worst abuse I've ever witnessed. I've never seen anything like it. There's no case here, but I've never, that's Alan Dershowitz, a Democrat. Greg Jarrett, who's a great scholar, great guy. He came out with reports that were so damning and so horrible. Actually, read it. But this is really prosecutorial misconduct. That's what it's called. The innocence of people makes no difference whatsoever to these radical left maniacs. It is worse, actually, in my opinion, hard to believe anything could be worse than this, but I think it's worse than ballot stuff or media manipulation by the FBI working together with Twitter, Facebook, and the rest. Remember when that came out 4 weeks ago, that the FBI was working to make sure that nothing bad is said about Biden, but as much bad as possible is said about Trump. And you know, that had more of an impact even than Truth to Vote with the ballot stuffing, when they caught ballots being stuffed on tape, all live on tape. So we have to stop them from cheating in elections. Because if we don't win this next election, 2024, I truly believe our country is doomed. I think it's doomed. Prosecutorial misconduct is their new tool, and they are willing to use it at levels never seen before in our country. We've had it, but we've never had it like this. We must stop them, and we must not allow them to go through another election where they have yet another tool in their toolkit. Remember everything I've endured, all of the hits, all of the attacks, all of the assaults and pain of my loved ones. My loved ones have suffered far more than I have. It's almost become like I go through Russia, phony deal. Impeachment hoax number 1, phony deal. Impeachment hoax number 2, phony deal. The Mueller witch hunt, phony deal. By the way, its determination after 2.5 years, no collusion. There was no collusion with Russia. I could have told them that very easily. But they knew that because they had the laptop. And the laptop, the collusion, was with Biden and Hillary Clinton, who worked with them on the dossier paid for by Russia. They don't do anything about it. So I hear that, and you get a little bit heartened to it, you get a little bit immune, but they do tremendously big damage to great people, your family members, and your friends, and your associates, and people that work for you, and everybody. But I never ran for office. If I never took on the deep state, so I never ran for office before. I mean, I ran one time and I won. It happened to be for the presidency.
Amen.
I had a senator come in to see me once, a few years ago. He said, "Sir, you've only done this for 1 year." I've been running for office, sir, for 28 years. I ran for president a couple of times. I'm greatly experienced. I think you should listen to me. I said, well, I've only run one time. I've only been doing it for 1 year. And I became president of the United States. So I want to listen to you. I don't want to listen to, I don't want to listen to them.
Amen to that.
But if I never did run for office, if I never took on the deep state, if I never stood up to China like no other president has ever stood up before, you didn't even know China was a problem until I came along. China was ripping us off, making $600 billion a year. $600 billion. And I did a little tariff hunting with them, and we took in hundreds of billions of dollars. I got the farmers of our country $28 billion because of the abuse that they had to take. The farmers love Trump. They keep saying, oh, I think DeSantis could do okay with farmers. I don't think so. Based on polls, he's not doing okay with anything. Well, it's never good to try and destroy Social Security. It's never good to raise the minimum age to a very high level, which was not good, and to go against Medicare and try and obliterate it. These are a few of the good facts. It's also not good when you look statistically at how he did on COVID. Not well at all. He's in a very bad position. Or you look at how he does on crime. Not good, not good. We have great Republican governors, actually, who did really much better, who shut down their states for a very short time, or in some cases didn't shut them down at all. I look at South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee. I mean, we had some states that did a phenomenal job with no shutdowns. You know, I gave them the right not to shut down. Not everybody, you didn't have to shut down. But in the case of Florida, they unfortunately didn't shut it down. They shut down the beaches, they shut down everything. So now that people are finding out about what happened, they're saying, man, he's dropping like a rock. And I wonder why. But, you know, you never like it when somebody comes, you see, I'm a loyalist. They say, sir, don't talk about that, sir. Because people don't want to hear that, but I do, because I'm a loyal person. These people over here have been very loyal to me. Marjorie, Matt, your Lieutenant Governor Dan, many of them sitting right here. Congressman Wesley, that was a good speech you gave. But they've been very loyal, but I'm a loyalist. And when a man comes to me, tears in his eyes, he's at almost nothing in the polls. And he's fighting somebody that's at 42 and he's got almost $30 million in the bank. He's at almost nothing, he's got no cash. And I say, I can't give you an endorsement, there's no way you can win. You're dead. But he fought a little bit, like 150, you certainly know Jim Jordan, that I can tell you. He fought a little bit, just a little bit, on impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, meaning on television, because I didn't know him very well. But I saw him, so he came and he really wanted. I said, you can't win, can you? How do you can win? Sir, if you endorse me, I'll win. Please. Please, sir, endorse me. And I said, all right, let's give it a shot, because honestly, the Secretary of Agriculture, Adam Putnam, good man, but I never met him. I didn't know him. So I don't feel guilty about it. You know, if you don't know somebody. I wish I knew him, actually. You want to know the truth, I wouldn't have done this. So what happened is, I said, let's give it a shot, Ron. And I endorsed him, and he became like a rocket ship. Within 1 day, the race was over. He got the nomination. Then he had to run against a man that was the hottest in all of politics. He was the hottest person. Remember, it was him and Stacey Abrams, the two hottest people in the Democrat Party. So we laugh at him now, but at the time, he was one of the hottest people in politics, Matt, right? He comes from the state Matt's very familiar with. Now, he turned out to be a crackhead. But I did rallies for Ron that were massive rallies, and they were very successful. So we got him the nomination. We then got him the election. He said, I don't think I can make it, because the other guy was really popular, believe it or not. He was going to be the next president of the United States. But that didn't work out too well. They caught him in a crack den. Of course, anything goes in politics today. He can maybe make it. Maybe he's going to make a comeback. Who knows? But think how bad Florida would be. Remember one thing. Florida has been tremendously successful for many years, long before this guy became governor. Florida was tremendously successful under Rick Scott. He was, look, whether you like him or not, Charlie Crist, it was very successful. He was a Republican at the time. But Florida's been successful for decades. In fact, probably as or more successful than it is now.
I like Ron.
But when a man, you know, you get him elected, and there's no quid pro quo. Get rid of that word. Remember those words? Quid pro quo, with the perfect call I made with the Ukrainian president. But when you're getting a guy, so he gets the nomination because of you, he wins the election because of you. 2 years later, the fake news is up there saying, will you run against the president? Will you run? And he says, I have no comment. I say, that's not supposed to happen. I have no comment. No. So I'm not a big fan, but I love, that's right, he's a disciple of Paul Ryan. He is actually a disciple. That's why he wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare. But I think we're doing really well. I mean, we're up at levels. I don't know if they have them on the screen, but they might put them up on the screen. The polls, the last 4 or 5, actually the last month.
Get back to talk about communists.
And put the other ones up. You'll see some numbers that are incredible. You'll see some numbers that we just had one today. 69 for Trump, and I think 18 or 19 for the sanctimonious. We were at 69 and one today. But if I never fought the Marxists and the lobbyists and the rhinos and the open border zealots, if I never fixed our military and I rebuilt our entire military, we defeated ISIS. We took out al-Baghdadi, we took out Soleimani. We fixed our military and gave you the largest tax cut in the history of our country. We gave you the largest regulation cuts in the history of our country. That's why our businesses were doing so well, not now, unfortunately. And none of this persecution would have ever happened. In other words, if I didn't do all that, I was leading this life. I didn't know what subpoena meant. Now I'm one of the kings. I know, I can look at the color. I can tell you where that one came from. Oh, that's a minute. Now, if I didn't do all that stuff, or if I was doing badly in the polls, instead of the numbers, you're at 69 and 59 to a very small number.
All right,
It would,
here we go.
You know, they would